actually be live cool intro song yet, but I can assure you, people who are watching right now, that we are, well, and by we I mean I, am working on an intro. But today we have a surprise guest. In fact, it's not a surprise because I put him in the thumbnails today. So let's get right to it. We got Mr. Ryan Roger Afty right here. How you doing, Dad?
Hello! It's great to see you, DJ, and hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Different kind of format. Everyone's getting squashed in, so you can only see me and part of my custom-made microphone stand. But it's great to be here, Ronnie. I hope you're doing well, and hopefully everyone will enjoy the show, whether it's live or on replay.
I'm just glad that it's a tight view so nobody can see the pile of soda cans that are like about the avalanche here. Like yesterday, I opened up the window during a lightning storm or some kind of storm, and it's like bling, 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 bling. Like it's just, cans falling all over. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make an adjustment right here. We're gonna move the chat window right here so that we can actually read it today. Hope you guys in the chat, we're gonna give you guys some notoriety here. We got my friend James here. We got Lady Mist. Lady Mist was first to show up in the chat today. And, it's our third guest ever. I did that like whole third guest ever.
If you can read that, folks, if you can read that up there, you have far better vision than I do.
So I'm glad you point. Yeah, I can't read it. I can barely read. I can sort of read it. And so I've been meaning to like maybe do something like this. It encroaches on a lot of screen real estate, but this is like one of these like things that like, and this brings us right into like the first topic I think is like stream signs, like how people do different things. And last week we had Pacific 414 on, and he's like up there with people who do this type of thing consistently, like they do it like almost every week, or they do something every week. You do something like every day.
Yes.
And you stream at least every week. You stream multiple times. I saw the reality-based movies today, and I see Mephisto's movie reviews is like a regular staple now of your, content, which is great. How did you meet Mephisto?
Oh, a recommendation from Superman if he wasn't afraid or scared of green rocks. The main man of the Legion of Dreamers recommended him to me. It's very interesting that an Israeli recommends an Israeli to someone who makes fun of Israelis, tiny hats, big noses, funny hair. But yeah, it's very interesting to have Mephisto on to get his perspective. And he's a great regular of Reality Based. And without him, Reality Based movies wouldn't be as active as it was. We had 11 episodes. It was a good run. We stopped it mainly because of the fact that movies and TV shows were too niche of a topic to talk about. So we rebranded as Reality Based Entertainment, of which the first 2 episodes and their topics of the day were neatly cut up and made into videos. So yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I actually don't remember how I met Jay off the top of my head, but I'm sure we had a great talk sometime somewhere.
I mean, first time I seen him on your show, it was what do you call it, during when you guys were discussing the events in October, I think it was the massacre, and it was just cool having his insight because it's like, of course, everyone loves talking out of their ass, and everyone loves being an expert on things like that they are, outside of, or maybe they watch like a few documentaries and they think they know like the answer. And sometimes, look, a documentary will give you a lot of info or some background, people who know their history. But of course, then with Israel, like if you ever seen Shags, where he used the term, that when you're getting into a debate, it's the chicken or the egg type situation, and that does create a bit of a challenge. But at the same time, I can empathize with the position that, like, if I get massacred, why do I have to like walk on eggshells, in response? So it is like it creates like it was a very interesting topic, and I appreciated his integrity in discussing the matter, because a lot of people, once they get tribal, once they pick a side, once they are already on a side, just because of natural affiliation, they'll hear some talking point like, oh, they were eating babies. Okay, that's World War I, but they were cutting off babies' heads, and like people run with it. It's like, okay, great. Like, I'm not saying I want to see pictures, but I need to see pictures, or I need to see evidence of this. And like, apparently they shot babies, but they weren't cutting off babies' heads. So I mean, it's like a minor distinction, but it's like the thing is, I think sometimes you don't have to like make shit up to like deliver a damning narrative if it's true, you know? And if anything, it diminishes the narrative to, you know, run with something that's not demonstrable, not true. So I appreciate his integrity for pointing out that, you know, oh, we don't have evidence of that yet, but this is what we do know. This is the situation. He gave some insights about the burial customs and, you know, all these interesting details. So that was really cool. But then, you know, also just the banter, like you said, when you're doing your pop culture, your movies, your entertainment topic, you know, it's a good time. And real quick, let's just acknowledge our chat folk here. Now, real quick, I noticed that JLM James was observing some issues, I believe, with the stream thing. Now, I know when I join on the phone, sometimes sometimes not YouTube's, but YouTube singular likes to default to like super low resolution, and I have to manually select high resolution. It's like not a big deal, but I'm a premium subscriber of YouTube, and they've been jacking up the price to the point that now I'm like, do I really want to keep paying these asses? I mean, like they fucking shadow banned me automatically from Snowdub like 2.5 weeks ago now. So it's like,
Damn.
I got member emojis. I can use the member emojis. Nobody can read the friggin' member emojis. So it's like I figured this out when I logged into my like other YouTube account and started sending messages from this one, and I'm like, well, okay, I can't see them from over there, but I can see the other guy's messages, vice versa. So that was interesting. But yeah, so you know, JLM, I hope that's working better. But you know, let me know if there's anything you observe.
Channel suppression takes many forms, ladies and
Mhm.
gentlemen. And if ever something embarrassing happens to you, just claim it is deepfake technology. Because more and more, no one will be able to tell the difference between truth and lies. And in a sense, no one will trust anyone. Civilization will break down, and the machine will rise to take over.
This is true. I mean, it's a possibility. Well, let me say, I don't know if it's absolute, but I'm open to these possibilities. And I want to give a shout out to Hofcast. Thanks for tuning in. Pop Culture Mechanic, who will have trades talk tomorrow. And I believe if I type in !pop, the Stream Elements bot is not working right now. Do your job, Stream Elements bot. Maybe I got to click on another bot. Oh, I was supposed to do it like that. Is it too late to do that now? I'm afraid to do it. I'm afraid. I'm gonna click a button that might break the stream.
Good.
Please work. Please work. Don't break. Don't
Please
break.
break.
Don't fucking
Please
break. Don't.
break.
Okay. It gave me an error message, but that's better than breaking the stream, so I can live with that. So whatever. Okay, we don't have the Stream Elements bot. That sucks. I was really hoping to you know, like, you know, do that, you know, have that going. Now I gotta click on people's shit. I gotta be like clicking on Pop Culture Mechanic in order to promote his stream tomorrow. So I got it right here on my bottom screen. Pop will promote that later on again. But we're going to just put that in right now because, I mean, like, it is a staple of my Friday evening because Tuesday is my Friday.
That's why we have loyalists, DJ, and we go live at a time most appealing to as many people as possible. This isn't the worst time to go live, ladies and gentlemen, but it's not far off, especially for European audiences. But
yes.
please, go ahead.
Like Ryan is here right now. It's like freaking 3:45 a.m. It's actually 3:52 a.m. London time right now. So, you know, he's keeping it real right now. I mean, like, I did this a few years ago. I did this experiment where I was working at Best Buy. I was working in consumer electronics retail, and I decided to do this experiment where I would get up at like 4 a.m. like on a day when I had work at 10 a.m. And I liked it because it kind of like gave me the freedom to, like, you know, play a video game. Like I at the time I was getting to this rocket game called Kerbal Space Program, where it's like you could build your own rockets and you could kind of do absurd shit, like take like 10 Falcon boosters and just like glue them together and launch this absurd rocket that would, like, if it crashed, it would like destroy Miami. So it's like one of these things that you could only do in a video game, you know, and just, you know, doing these things before, you know, work instead of after work. And then I'd get home from work and eat dinner and I would go to bed at like fucking like 7 p.m. and do it again. And I did this for a little short while, you know, like a few months maybe. That's like during that era of my life, that's when I discovered Loki's Mornings of Mischief, I think, or when I started watching it, because, when I watched it more regularly during the live. So, you know, all fun and games and stuff. But let's see.
I never
here.
have the time. I never have the time anymore, especially with the schedule. Loki's shows every weekday are fantastic, especially the Wednesday shows, which are YouTube talk and have been for some time. Unfortunately, because he ran out of women to talk to for the fires of or women of the fandom, rather. And yeah, he's been going strong for many wonderful years now, and hopefully he never stops, despite being married and despite desiring to start a record store in a few years' time. So who knows what may happen to Mornings of Mischief, whether it'll rebrand or whether Loki will pick a successor. I, for one, will keep a far eye on that fine man and his fine community.
If I was Loki or advising Loki, I would say open your record store and do your YouTube show from the record store, because that's like a way you
Right.
can both promote your record store and in a way like showcase things that you have in the store. So I mean, maybe he'd have to spin up a separate channel just for like that side of things,
Mhm.
but he could do like maybe his regular show in there once in a while, and like, I'm just kind of purely speculating here, but showcase products and stuff. But I gotta say, the missus seems pretty cool. I don't think she's gonna like, it's like I've met friends like, okay, so here's one. Okay, so we're gonna bring up a random YouTuber, guys,
Oh
and
my.
I hope we have enough nerds. Shout out, by the way, to Iceman, who has joined the chat just a little while ago. We got
Ooh.
Beetlejuice right here. I know I read it really slow, it's like as if I can't read a beat. But no, joke aside, welcome to the show, Beetlejuice, who says my brother from another mother. And so what was I saying here? So what were we just talking about again? So
The
I got
perils
sidetracked.
of marriage.
Oh yeah, great, perfect, good. So okay, there was this guy I watched. So speaking of nerds, I used to watch this guy named the Stargate guy, and he actually started off as a content creator where it was just a fun channel called Beard versus Geek. And you can still find the guy. I'd replay his content, but if I replayed his content right now, it'd be the third week in a row that I had to edit a live stream to ensure that it didn't get blocked in like 90% of the world, because like it's weird, and like I play, okay, look, I understand if I play video from Sunrise Entertainment, Japanese anime, Mobile Suit Gundam, I get that that's their intellectual property and that system can detect it and all of that. But the thing is, there's a YouTube channel that uploaded an entire 75 episode anime series to it. And that seems to work fine. So I thought, well, if I just play that off my screen, if they're allowed to have it, I'm allowed to have it. And so it'd be one thing if YouTube said on the screen, oh, we're filtering your stream right now because you're playing someone else's content.
Mhm.
But no, it says you're playing content owned by Sunrise Entertainment. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. But it's like, how does the other guy get away with it? I mean, I'm not going to rat him out because I'm grateful that I was able to watch 75 episodes of a good mecha anime with a lot of geopolitical undertones, by the way. Yeah, Fang of the Sun Dugrim. It's like, it's not your typical mecha anime. You got a colony world. You have an Earth that's like got some economic things going on. You got migrant workers. You got the colony world wants its independence, and obviously the Earth Federation is like not having it for one reason or another. It's like they can't accept that, and there's a lot of like intrigue, and you think, okay, this guy's a piece of shit. You think the governor, the senator is a bad guy, and then as things unfold, you get a little more nuance. You start figuring out like maybe this guy's not an asshole, even though looks like he's on the wrong side, and maybe this guy here is a bit fool. So kind of interesting there. But bottom line, that was like 2 weeks ago. I'm playing that, and a week ago I'm playing something else. So yeah, I'm not like I got to do some experiments. Sometimes I'll do like a private video just to see if like I'll upload a video with some of the content just to see like if it flags the system, if the system flags it. So there's different ways I will experiment to determine that.
It's not what you know, my good
Mhm.
man. It's who you know.
So
And that's something that will continue for many more years to come, whether it's within establishment circles or in creator circles as well.
And that's the thing, like the channel suppression thing. So sometimes I think people are being paranoid, but then other times, like when I got shadow banned recently, there's people like I went to look up like answers on Reddit, for example, and like someone used the word shadow ban, and some like person like, actually, you're not being shadow banned. It's called being hidden. And I'm like, yes, but for all intents and purposes, it's shadow banning. The person being hidden is not being made aware of it, and so they keep typing. Nobody could read it. It can almost be disconcerting because if that person doesn't know if people don't like them, or if the channel creator blocked them on purpose, or if this was a system thing. And in this case, it appears to be a system thing. Because I mean, the channel person, they're not blocking me when I log into another account. They're perfectly happy to greet me. They go, "Why? What happened, Ron? A DJ?" And so they're just like, yeah. They check their settings. they don't see me blog. So I send a support request. So YouTube support's like, go to the channel and, you know, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Obviously, I'm subscribed. Then hit the join membership button. Now, number one, if I was shadow banned and not a member, it shouldn't matter. Like that channel doesn't require membership to, you know, participate in the chat. And if I didn't want to spend the money on membership, that would be kind of shitty to expect me to go to that step. So that was a weird like step in the support reply. But then I'm already a member, so it's like, well, gave me an idea, but I don't want to really cancel and restart a membership because I like those badges that say I've been a member for like however long. Especially on big channels. Like I'm still a member on Vine, not Vine, Adam Krigler's show.
Ooh.
And I go there and it says I've been like a member for like some obscene amount of time, like 28 months or some crazy shit like that. Like whatever it's been a long time. But that is a form of suppression because I mean, in a way, it's like, look, Snowdub isn't like probably the most popular to like some mainstream communities. He speaks his mind and he'll say things that like, you know, speak truth to power. They don't actually like that, even though they sometimes say that, you know. And so, you know, that maybe is a factor, like alienating individual members, because I haven't participated in the chat and I've skipped like a couple of streams that I would otherwise sit down and enjoy just because it's inconvenient for me to log into my government name, as people call it, to like, you know, for some reason I have a YouTube account. I gotta create an alternate. Like now I really have to create an alternate just so that if this happens on another channel, I'm not using my full surname on a YouTube channel, which I mean, is not a big deal. You do it. I think unless that's a made-up name, could be a made-up name. Maybe
no, it's definitely not a made-up name. Although some Americans cannot pronounce it correctly. I did it in a silly way. I couldn't come up with a creator name, so I used my real name. Reality-based, in retrospect, would be my creator name. And if I do get purged, we'll rebrand as reality-based. And one of the reasons that we have so many ideas for shows, DJ, is in the inevitable event that I will get purged as a result of speaking my mind. So if reality-based gets purged, we have reality-based entertainment. If we start a gaming channel, reality-based gaming. If we start a political channel, reality-based politics. A history channel, reality-based history. Basically, it's a survival mechanism, and it's all archived, and no doubt I'll be purged, and I'll come back with a variation of my name, and you'll see me gradually age through stress-induced content creation, or sick, for short.
Well, hopefully not, but you know, I mean, anything's possible the way things are going and stuff. I mean, globally and economically, socially. Shout out to Simple Jack, who does some interesting gaming streams. So I recommend you guys check out Simple Jack. I will add you to the stream element spot as soon as I figure out why it's not working. So I'm yelling at the bot, not you guys. And I want to give a shout out to Orville Nation. I hope you're doing well, PJ. And of course, I think I said hi to David Glenn. But if I did not, greetings, David Glenn. But you know, so I mean, that's like one angle. Now you're a minimalist. Like, you know, I remember you emphasizing now, not only do you avoid editing like the plague, but you also like spend as little money as possible to build up your capabilities, and gradually as a genuine need arises and you can't do without something, or you feel that it helps to improve, it appears that's when you'll buy a microphone or you do something like that. And I found it interesting. You were running on a Chromebook for a while, and you jumped over to, I believe, a ThinkPad, or you use both. Is that right?
I use a Lenovo ThinkPad. What's it called again? An X230. It's over a decade old.
Yeah, I got one under my desk.
I use it like a desktop, for a good 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I managed to get it for less than $80. So that's less than £60. I still use the Chromebook as a secondary computer. It does have all the videos and folders of a previous run.
I love when that happens. Oh my god!
Previous run, but in a sense, from the older days when I was using.
It's not someone. Okay, sometimes like I'll obtain an old computer from the garbage or something, like dumpster diving, and it has someone else's data on it, and it boots up, but you know. David Glenn said ThinkPads used to be top notch, and yeah, this is a ThinkPad. His ThinkPad is among the ones back when they were still built like tanks. I have a similar model. I think you called out the model number, and I have
X230. Yes.
Yeah, I got that one, and it's a nice little one, you know, and you know, quite upgradable, and you know, I mean, it has all the conventional upgrades. I think it even has a CD or DVD drive, maybe, but it definitely has, you know, removable battery. You can put a hard drive or SSD, and like you said, you're packing 8 gigs already on a machine that may or may not have come with 8 gigs when it was new, but
Mm,
definitely, I think it's a fine machine, and I think you see Chromebooks are interesting because Chrome OS is super efficient, so you run it on like pretty crappy hardware, but when you need something a little more heavy hitting, it's just nice to have like a real computer. No
mm,
offense to the Chromebooks. I mean, like my Chromebook is like a backup machine, and it
mm.
surprises me the stuff it does. Now, James points out that certain type of pew pew YouTubers and many others have adopted a similar strategy to what you describe, and I think in my case, like I would just create a secondary channel and gradually, like maybe do like a stream a week on it, something just to kind of like gradually build up subscribers. I don't
Mm,
expect to get it to like the same glory as this one, but ideally, I would
mm.
want to get everyone who's actively watching now. If I was, running another channel, I would want to get everyone watching that. Maybe simulcast, which I don't know if YouTube would like say, okay, we want to blacklist channel A, and we see that channel A is simulcasting to channel B. Maybe that would not be a wise thing to do,
That's
but
why I try to not simulcast as a content creator. I have a Me on Other Shows playlist, which seems to be a reality-based exclusive for some damn
Ah.
reason, because no one really has the bright idea of doing it once they start their streaming journey. Although I would expect nothing less from Americans whose intelligence is not their forte. Their forte is to be strong and to be courageous to the best of their
Oh,
limited abilities. But it's great to see all the fine folks in the chat. I hope you are all doing well. We are using Restream, which I can't stand. And yes, please continue to speak your minds. Mm.
so James, I'm glad you mentioned Dick Marks. I really am. I think his name was Daryl, and good man. Love the guy to death. I was really upset when Dick Marks posted a live stream. I was literally like, I think sitting at fucking work. I was sitting on the fucking crap of all places, and Dick Marks, really good guy. If I was doing a live stream and he was watching my live stream and I said, hey, go check out this other guy, I'm about to end my stream right now, he would show up and show support. And
Mm.
this dude was just like, I first met this guy before he met me, before I was even a content creator. It was like 2 Christmases ago during the coof.
Ooh.
And I'm at home on Christmas Eve, because nobody wants to have relatives over because they're being fucking hypochondriacs. And I'm just combing the YouTubes and I see this Dick Marks guy and he's giving these like philosophical like black box videos. Sometimes he'll have video, other times he's talking to like a black screen, but like just interesting things like, when he worked retail and how like he had a parent who had a kid with ADD and he's saying that, look, maybe your kid is rambunctious, but it's not like maybe you shouldn't be giving him these like, stims or meds that
Mm.
stimulate the kid. Maybe maybe you should just do some parenting, and he had some interesting like hot takes, and so I'm really glad that James mentioned him because I've been dying for an opportunity to do a tribute to Dick Marks, and just right now to be able to mention him means a lot to me because it was like literally a 10-second live stream. He goes, "I'm going into hospice care. See you guys later." I get like about just enough time to say motherfucker, and then the stream is over. And
Ooh.
I send $100 to him just because I said maybe if he can't use it, maybe his family can use it in
Mm.
some way. I don't know. He's like, I know he had a GoFundMe for a while, and I was like, I wish I sent money earlier when he could have used it in his living life. But maybe his final week, he could do something with the money. I don't know, and in the worst case, if the money doesn't get used, the state comptroller will send it back to me in like 10 years.
Well,
That happens. Mhm.
that's why archiving is very important, because we won't be around forever, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, Cardinal Sin recently passed away, a fellow creator
Mhm.
who was well
May he
known,
rest in peace.
who we had on as a guest of Reality Based. I was on his show on one occasion, although that was put on a membership. And back then, I had a policy of not putting membership based streams on the Reality Based Me on Other Shows playlist. So that is a regret in hindsight. But I did have great talks with the man, and it's unfortunate that he's no longer with us. But that's why archiving is very important in case we pass away, we creators pass away, or in the event that we get purged. So I have this policy myself that if a fellow creator gets purged, then their content that has been archived on YouTube, at least, with me involved as a guest, it then becomes mine, and then we put it on and cut it up into bits. That's my policy when it comes to that. Thankfully, it hasn't happened yet, but in the event that it inevitably does, given all the people I've interacted with, that's what we're going to go for.
Mm-hmm. Because like yeah, but like it's funny. I mean, Cardinal Sin Cardi's channel. I mean, still up, but I just did a quick search to see if I could find a live stream with your name on it. But is it like why would if you did a lot? You appeared on his channel? Is that correct?
Yes,
So
yes, I was a guest of many, and it was a midnight to midnight stream, and it was on a it was a membership stream. Uh,
oh,
it
so
was
if you're
made
not
a membership stream after the fact. So,
oh, so that's like makes it difficult to okay, so that's like almost impossible to fetch now
mm,
unless the channel is still accepting new memberships. So the money would be going into a black hole if people
mm,
yeah. Apparently you can still click the join button on
good.
Cardi's channel. So apparently that's actually still an
Mm,
option right now. I mean, I'm not saying, it's advisable because why should YouTube keep 100%, which is effectively what would happen if we tried to join on Cardi's channel right now.
mhm,
But yeah, he was an interesting guy, and he had to enter the fringe thing. I didn't always agree with like all of the UFO stuff because my stance on the UFO thing, I don't know what to think, but I don't like this whole UFO testimony thing in the Congress. I don't like that it's like this thing that's suddenly acceptable to talk about in the mainstream. It's not like it's not like I want it to be like a topic that we're not allowed to talk about. It's just that like I get suspicious that it's okay to talk about UFOs in this context and how people are like quick to go, it must be extraterrestrial origin. Like slow down. There's other possibilities that are more down to earth before we go to that possibility. But I mean that's a whole rabbit hole I can
mm,
go into. I'm not even gonna begin there. But basically one of these days I will personally talk about Dick Marks because like he was just a good guy and it was just sad to see him go when he did, but like he was fighting the good fight for a while. He was on, dialysis for a long time, and like in his like last month of streaming, he talked about how like apparently dialysis is not this magical replacement for a kidney. So keep that in mind if you ever, have a choice between keeping a kidney and getting rid of one. I mean, I don't know why anyone would choose that unless they had to, but you get my drift.
mhm,
Like, maybe before giving up a kidney to donate it to someone, think twice in case, because it's redundancy. We like having redundancy, but like basically the thing is that the medical system is set up in such a way where like in an ideal world you would get your dialysis treatment while you sleep or like multiple times a week, but most of the time it's like maybe once twice a week, something like that. It's a suboptimal amount. It's enough to keep you going, but it's not enough to make you like optimal. So
mhm,
like, he just a lot of insights there. He was a fellow Trekkie, and we got a Fight Club reference here for some reason. I think I'm being
mm.
told something about is that like a hint? Tell me, don't mention what happens in the Fight Club. And I want to give a shout out to the Padawannabe. And it's really interesting, James. I didn't know you were, that close with him. We'll talk about him sometime. But yeah, no, he was a great guy, and it was an honor to know him. And let's see, YouTube just says to
Mm.
David Glenn for saying if ThinkPad could withstand a vehicle driving on top of it. Yeah, yeah, they
Well,
can.
although I look old, ladies and gentlemen, I am 24 years old and I aim to do this for the next few decades, bare minimum. So, considering there are content creators out there 20, 30 years older than I, well, eventually people are going to either retire or die, and records must be kept and maintained to use as inspiration for a new generation of content creators.
That's why I
So there you go.
downloaded my own videos recently because
Mhm.
I mean generally like I sometimes record locally. Today I'm not doing that because I just don't want to have 6 more terabytes of crap on my computer. But no, true. Archiving is important. Archive.org used to be really good, but during the pandemic they started like taking requests to take things down. So people use archive.is. So if let's say you ever go to New York Times and they say you viewed your maximum allotment of articles, take the hyperlink from that article, go to archive.is, copy and paste the URL for that article that you can't read into archive.is, and there's a good chance that that fucking article is archived there, which is wonderful because, like, look, it'd be one thing if they were doing like real journalism and they maintain
Mm.
journalistic integrity, but I'm not giving them a freaking penny for the BS they've been pulling in the past like decade and whatnot. It's just not,
Mm. Trust
you
is
know,
essential, and trust between the establishment and the people is gone. But we are in a zombie state where the establishment is too strong to remove, but people can see more and more that it is beyond repair, and it's going to get more and more difficult as time goes on. The scourge of of technology where trust breaks down, where AI-based content creation will flood the market, and you won't be able to tell the difference between a human being and a machine, whether it's audio format or even visually. That's why I make the argument: if someone posts something embarrassing or damaging to you, simply say it's a deep fake technology.
It's true.
They
And
can't prove that it isn't in this day and age with the technology currently available as of the making of this video in mid-December of 2023.
it sounds scary, but it's one of the more reasonable statements on AI. I get annoyed when people jump to crazy, and I don't mean to just use marginalizing terms. I should be careful because I don't want to marginalize. But when people jump to these conclusions, these extraordinary conclusions about AI, like they genuinely think we're going towards Skynet, and I don't believe that for a minute, at least not
Mm,
yet. More likely, if we get a Skynet type scenario, it'll be more like a oopsie, and it won't be because the software is self-aware. It'll be because some idiots implemented a string of separate tools that give the appearance of being, conscious. And
mhm,
maybe that's a difference, a distinction without a difference. But I personally think it matters. I mean, I'm just gonna play it by ear. Like right now, I see AI as advanced pattern recognition, but I can't deny the amount of channels that have already come out that are clearly not human operated. That said, we can still tell a lot of them apart. We can tell
mm,
when they're using some kind of advanced speech synthesizer.
mm,
And if you ever like chat GPT, like people, if you ever like get an answer to a question, it's giving you a lot of detail. But you get the expert to read that, and the expert will catch the errors pretty quickly. And anyone who tells you otherwise is either not an expert in the field they're reading or like is being swept up by the hype. But the other thing is that ChatGPT gives you lengthy answers because it's like generally speaking, people think, oh, this thing is more knowledgeable if it's giving me a longer answer. But there's answers I got, like I did an experiment, like asking it about optimal reptile lighting. I asked it about some very specific type of lighting technology called metal halide lighting, which is similar to like
mm,
halogen or high pressure sodium. So if you ever go to a parking lot and you see those white lights that take like 5 minutes to warm up, those are mercury vapor lamps. If you see the orange street lights, you probably have LEDs in the UK by now because I know you guys are all about, not all about, but I know like with the energy prices being what they are,
mhm.
there will be, I'm going to guess that your nation has adopted LED lighting in the mass, out of necessity. Have you
Well,
observed
I
anything like
wouldn't
that?
be surprised if we are still using older technology. If you want to save money, instead of lighting every lamppost, you light half the lampposts in an alternate manner,
Huh,
rather
yeah.
than getting new stuff, which costs money. In regards to the age of the machine, one of my biggest fears is that the fuckers, as I like to call them, are not hardware locked. So they're not like us human beings, hardware locked in our bodies. They can roam from place to place in an environment called the internet, where you can take them out in one place and they pop up in another because they can copy and paste their programs as simple as a few clicks. That's why I think we should work on hardware more than software, allow the hardware to catch up with the current software so we can have a visual representation of what these fuckers are and their capabilities. Likewise with the Terminator as a concept, it was
Hmm.
showcasing the dangers of hardware based robotics and software based artificial intelligence, whereas people don't see the AI around them because it's software based. It's not hardware based, and thankfully, the hardware is catching up now as people get arms and legs and bodies and that sort of thing. But there's a reason why the techno fuckers worked on software so they could stay under the radar for as long as they could and avoid the necessary regulation that is required for a technology that
Hmm.
makes the nuclear bomb about as dangerous as a pencil.
Oh man, and that's something like I just kind of thought about cardinal sin. I remember when they talk about
Mhm.
UFOs, you hear these stories about like a supposed UFO, I say supposed, flying over a missile bunker and essentially disabling the activation systems. Now, these are
Mm,
all, in my opinion, hearsay. People will say that here's a report from a legitimate source. I don't know, I haven't really researched it, but Yeah, I mean, these are some valid concerns you bring up here. I do see a lot of empowering capabilities. I know a lot of people will have concerns about Neuralink being like this thing, like if you ever hear the term transhumanism,
Mm,
essentially like the fusion of man and technology, and this like not so much evolution as it is like just combining man. And I don't really care if it's a voluntary association, but of course
mm,
we get into these scenarios where we may be like, and I'm careful to invoke movies because I bump into many people who invoke movie references to like
mhm,
support their arguments or support their paranoia. And the world isn't a movie in my opinion, but like Johnny Mnemonic, like or what's that other one, was it Gattaca, where it said, okay, so there's this movie, and don't quote me on this. Who's the guy who looks like Matt Damon but isn't Matt Damon?
I do not know.
Well, the guy who looks like Matt Damon but is not Matt Damon. People in the chat, you know who I'm talking about. You let me know. So basically,
We don't, just to say, Ronnie, we don't really have an origin story for the Borg, so maybe this is how it starts.
look, the Borg, like I've heard like a few of them, like Star Trek the motion picture. That's the
Mm,
origin story. I don't really think it is. I'm just giving an example. And so V'ger bumped into the Borg homeworld long before the Borg were what we've seen today. And then there's other scenarios. Now that one, origin story is not official, but I believe it was in a novelization
mm,
or a comic book or something like that, but not, seen as official canon. But that's this thing exactly. So like, there's two angles. There's like physical modification, and there's the fusion of man and technology. So Gattaca was basically like where a baby is born, you get your designer baby, and the parents they had one natural baby and one augmented baby, one genetically enhanced baby, and like there's like this part in the movie where like every day. The Matt Damon looked like Wahlberg might have been maybe Mark Wahlberg. I don't know. See, that's the guy I was talking about. Well, whoever the freak it was, every day I'm just gonna say Mark Wahlberg would
mhm.
go jogging on the beach with his brother, and his genetically mutated brother would fucking beat him every time. And then one day he beats his brother, and it's probably a bit of an ego hit to him, like, I got all these enhancements and you still beat me. But he was determined, and he worked as like a freaking like janitor, and every day he'd look up and see through the skylight a rocket launching. And he was like, one day I want to be one of the assholes in that rocket. I don't know why. I forget what the rocket did, but he wanted to be one of the guys in the rocket. And generally, of course, it was the Superman who would be given that opportunity or privilege. Now, Johnny Mnemonic would be like the Keanu Reeves movie where I'm going to misquote this. I'm going to bastardize the movie, and we'll get back to the chat momentarily. But essentially, he had like I believe some computer hardware in his head, and I
Ooh.
think in the movie he gets to a point where he's running out of memory, and he's got to go somewhere to get this fixed. So he goes to a nightclub because apparently the cyber hackers or the body hackers are at the nightclub. And like I don't know, the lady's like, "Hold your hand up," and he's like, It's like, "Okay, your fucking memory's full. That's the problem. You got to get it fixed or else." And so my point is that like, what would put someone in a position to adopt that type of technology, something risky? Because this is the thing, like Neuralink doesn't scare me on its own,
Mm.
but what concerns me is that if you get this competitive situation, and you can see this in like places like Korea, in my opinion, South Korea, of course, where like
No, no, no.
parents,
True Korea's in the north, Ronnie. We talked about this. Talked
yeah,
about this.
yeah, like if you like starving, I mean, but I mean, well, like there is this unification movement, and I think that's worth. There is a desire, almost like the Star Trek Vulcan dissident movement,
Mhm.
or I'm sorry, Romulan dissident movement, where there is a wish amongst members of the Romulan society to reunite with, with Vulcan. And in the
Mm.
case of Korea, there's actually a mutual perspective. There's people in South Korea who have family members or people in their ancestry who live in the North, and they would love nothing more than to reunite with their family, and
Mm.
hopefully share the gift of capitalism or free markets to some
Well,
extent. At least
there is a
Mhm.
small issue with that. It's not the issue people know the most about, but there are tens of thousands of defectors living in the south of Korea who have found it very difficult to acclimatize to what the country has to offer. And there is a stigma in the South in regards to folks in the North, although they do speak the same language. It does come with a slight dialect and accent difference. You can tell verbally the difference between a Korean from the north and a Korean from the south. If the south cannot handle a few tens of thousands of defectors, if ever it happens, I don't think they're going to handle doubling the size of their territory, adding 50% to their population, and most of the territory they're getting cannot be turned into farmland. That's one of the main reasons why the north of the country suffers from famines, is because their land is not arable, and even with Western farming practices, they wouldn't be able to feed their own people.
This isn't the you got an interesting perspective here because this is not the Berlin Wall we're talking about. This is not
Mm,
like just like East Berlin or East Germany. Like that's a bit more manageable. But North Korea, I mean, it is also in a different latitude and
mm,
mountains altitude, but latitude on its own has effects on how your climate is and how your soil,
mm,
biomes develop and stuff. So this is an interesting angle to look at. And part of it reminds me of just like the end of the Civil War, where okay, everyone wanted to be a bunch of bleeding hearts, which I respect in the North. But then once it was done, the people in the North who were a bunch of bleeding hearts didn't want the people from the South to just come to the North and work and live
mm.
amongst them. And suddenly they were like, whoa, 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 cool your jets here.
Well,
So there was
if
mhm,
Korea is ever united, first of all, it would have to be a neutral country, which means no Chinese troops and no American troops. So,
oof, that's
so
tough.
America is not going to support a unification process in which one of their greatest allies in Asia becomes, in effect, neutral ground. And a united Korea doesn't benefit anyone in the region except for the North Koreans living in North Korea, as it's known in the West. It wouldn't benefit the Chinese, they'd lose an ally. Wouldn't benefit the West because we would lose an ally in an effort to unify the country and make it neutral. The only people who stand to gain from unification, not even the South Koreans, their standard of living would probably go down in a unified Korea,
Interesting
mainly
concern.
because the government in Seoul, they can't handle 30,000 defectors. They're not going to handle an added population of 26 million people and the doubling of their territory. And they'd have to demilitarize because the Chinese are never going to allow a militarized Western power on their doorstep. So it's going to be very hard for them to manage, which is why the present situation exists, plus the fact that the North has nuclear weapons. And this situation, the current divide, suits both sides perfectly fine, and it serves the regime currently in the North perfectly fine. That's why I think the Hermit Kingdom will last long after the United States has crumbled into dust, because the region is at its best in the current situation. That's why it's been like that since the ceasefire well over 60 years ago now. Or maybe it's getting close, 70 years ago now. So yeah, that's how it's going to be.
That's a fair point, and I would just say like with just South Korea in its current state and as it's been for like some time now, there is a competitive culture. And this is
Mm,
like, I think about Japan being an archipelago, island nation with mountainous terrain and lots of people living on the coast. And things being competitive in Korea, you hear about like kids graduating college and or graduating high school, and their graduation gift is plastic surgery to make their eyes less thin in order to look prettier, in order to seek a career in hospitality, which apparently is one of the motivations for getting plastic surgery. And it's like a lot of us, like, sure, there's people who in America who are vain, but
mm,
a lot of us would not really even consider that as like a thing we would do, right after graduating, unless you had like a really busted nose. Like, I mean,
mm.
we all have friends, I think, who had like maybe one friend who like just didn't like their nose or got made fun of or just wasn't like feeling comfortable and they got a minor adjustment. But in
It's
general,
it's
I,
an
I
ex it's an
mhm.
example, unfortunately, of Western decadence, and in a sense, both sides of Korea are examples of the political extremes of the Cold War, a remnant of a bygone era. I wasn't even alive when the Cold War took place, but if Korea is ever going to be united, we have to realize this is not Germany and this is not even Vietnam. In order for there to be a united Korea, both North Korea and South Korea have to die. And I don't think any side wants that.
It's hard. I
And
mean, I don't want
people
to see
are
the Koreans
prepared.
go down.
People are prepared in the West for North Korea to cease to exist. They're not prepared for South Korea to cease to exist. And
Yeah.
the same for the other side. If there is to be a unity and a lasting peace, both countries and their extremes have to be destroyed. And that's why I don't see it happening.
I mean, maybe if there's like some kind of technological revolution, something like, and we're not going to see it. And this actually segues into something else that fascinates me. But
Ooh.
you know, we're not going to see like a revolutionary game changer with energy, in my opinion. Or if we do, it's not going to be like rolled out in a way that is truly beneficial. And real quick, I just want to acknowledge
Sure.
the chat. So the
Sure.
movie, it wasn't The Island, but The Island was a cool movie. Leonardo DiCaprio. It was a bunch of clones, and I don't want to ruin the plot, but that was a interesting movie. If you want like a bit of a mystery that gives you answers before the end of the movie, yeah, watch The Island. Ethan Hawke was in Gattaca, but Jesse Plemons looks exactly like Matt Damon without eyebrows. Okay, that answers the question. Thank you, David Glenn. And yeah, for archiving text, that was an interesting question that was asked. What's the best platform for archiving written work? And by that he means writings, nothing which has been printed. If it was, it would be thrown away when I pass on. Okay, so I don't know off the top of my head, but that's a good question. Personally, I think you should like make time capsules, burn data to what they call an M disk, which is a supposedly it's an optical disc like a Blu-ray or DVD that has a stone. It's not really stone, but it's like a stone-like material that they claim can last 1,000 years in the right conditions. I don't know if I trust that. I can't test that. But people should archive things every which way. And like someone mentioned, like using Tor to run a website, or even like blockchain. It actually can be a solution for replicating data geographically around the world. So we see blockchain used in order to replicate a ledger book around the world. So that's why, even though people say like, oh, Bitcoin is useless if you have a grid down power grid situation, your digital money doesn't work. That's not entirely true, but it does make things extra challenging because you will be at the mercy of market conditions. But hypothetically, if half the world loses its power grid and the other half of the world still has a power grid, then yes, the blockchain is still going to have integrity. It's still going to do, it's going to still account. The problem is you can't intervene. You can memorize your blockchain code. You can memorize your wallet key or whatever you call it. Because that's one of the things about Bitcoin. You can hypothetically memorize the code, although it'd be really hard to do, and smuggle that money across a border in your head. You know, without a paper, without a tattoo. Although you could probably tattoo it to, you know, your body as well, and maybe like come up with your own like cipher of a tattoo that would allow you to like call up your Bitcoin wallet. So this is like some of the stuff I like. And getting to Neuralink, then I got to touch on this scary topic, which was climate change. Remind me about that. Was that one like, oof? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because I mean, being in Europe, I feel like maybe you'll get a different brand of propaganda on that, or maybe just a different perspective in general. But what I was just saying is that, yeah, things are highly competitive in South Korea. And so I think capitalism is a great equalizer. But over there, people see that their kids will, like, there's these documentaries I've seen where kids will go to school like all fucking day and get 4 hours of sleep because the parents want their kids to have that competitive edge, because they want their kids to get the best possible job. And it's because, like, you know, maybe some parents work in a factory and they're overworked. But it's just like, it's a sucky way to live. But I can kind of respect it. And you'll notice that like in Japan and Asia, like even if a kid in Japan has like a hobby like yo-yo tossing, they'll take it to the next level, because I don't think their parents will tolerate them having a fucking trivial hobby unless they're fucking putting their all into it. But anyway, this climate change thing, like, I do think that people argue from a false dichotomy. I think we fall into a lot of traps because, like, just when we want to like argue, is it real or not, people will allow the Overton window to be moved, and they're gonna say that, oh no, climate change is real, but it's always happening. And things like, my attitude is like, I'm willing to acknowledge like real meteorology, but I don't want to give people like a foot, or I don't want to give people an inch on the bad side. And what I mean is like, we let certain legislation through, it's going to either increase the cost of energy or limit our access to energy. Meanwhile, the rich people who act like they're being all do-gooders and shit, they're going to continue to live in the lap of luxury. They're going to continue to eat their steaks. They're going to continue to have their large vehicles. And so, like last week, a guy named forgot the guy's name, but a YouTuber who does these climate videos, he says, like, if the Dubai climate conference doesn't succeed, 5 million people would die. And I said, great, 5 million less people means a smaller carbon footprint. And then people go, oh, but poor people put out less carbon. But I don't think that's entirely true, because I mean, rich people could afford energy windows and all of this. It's just a clusterfuck, and it pisses me off because I just don't like that. Like, I'm not trying to get stuck in a forced economy. I just want people to like kind of see. I want to have like an honest conversation about it. I should probably just put together some bullet points of my own. But what's your thoughts? What's your experience? What have they said in your country?
Well, I've been aware that efforts to scare people, no matter the policy, I've been aware of such tactics since I was a child, especially in regards to global warming, also known as climate change. They've changed it so many times within my and my father's lifetime. That is between the last 25, although I'm 24, 25 to 70 years, give or take a year or two. And I've personally found that we need to make the cost of energy cheaper. We need to have as much energy as possible, no matter the source. I mean, even if temperatures go up a few degrees, humanity and human engineering has always found a way to offset the damages of our own nature. When we conceived of the nuclear bomb, whether it's the atom bomb or the fission bomb or the fusion bomb, the hydrogen bomb, came up with nuclear power as a concept. So there are always pluses and minuses. And if sea levels do rise, well, have you guys ever heard of a country called the Netherlands? A country that has, over the past century, through advances in the sciences and technology and infrastructure, have regained more and more land from an ocean, from the sea, which supposedly has kept on going and kept on growing as a result of global warming and climate change. So the Holland is a great example of
They
what
pioneered a
prosperity
lot.
can do against the perils of global warming, whereas Bangladesh, a third world shithole, has the same problems as Holland, but because it is an impoverished nation, almost every wet season they experience mass flooding, which goes to show what freedom, peace, and prosperity can do from a European perspective. And when you do not have freedom, when you do not have peace, and you do not have prosperity, for example, Bangladesh, third world shithole, you can see the clear difference. And people wonder why Europe became a great success and Europeans conquered the world, and why non-Europeans, mainly those who are tanned, let's say that, didn't really do so well. I mean, the most successful tanned nation on planet Earth was conceived by two white Jews, and that's Wakanda. There we go.
That's interesting because, like, it's the Netherlands. They really have pioneered a lot of these efforts, like practically inventing levees and all of these earthworks that deal with inland water and land reclamation and stuff like that. And one of the things I'm glad you mentioned, like any energy source, because you'll get all kinds of shit. And one of the things that like will happen is like people would say like the answer is nuclear, and I'm not trying to be one of these people like blah blah blah. This is the answer. Mic drop. Like I'm not trying to do like a Ben Shapiro style debate or something when it comes to topics, because I mean like you're not gonna win the hearts and minds of the other side. It may not be possible. It might not be worth winning hearts and minds if someone's an asshole. But like if you could try to do that, that's gonna make things a little bit easier because it's a bit of a war. So one thing that comes up, people will say nuclear fission. Because look, of course we all want fusion. We all want fusion. But let's be honest here. Like it's always 20 fucking years away, and when it's ready, it's ready. And I'm not gonna hold my breath another 20 years for it while these climate people tell me to stop eating fucking meat. But nuclear fission, you bring this up, and the popular science communicators, as I call them, your internet science guys, they'll say some shit like, "Oh no, no, a nuclear power plant takes between 8 and 19 years to build, and therefore a nuclear power plant or enough nuclear power capacity won't be ready before the point of no return." And that fucking term pisses me off because it's a bit of an arbitrary number. Like I remember, like they would say, like, "Oh, we have 8 years before the point of no return with climate change," and just like I'm not even trying to be like a so-called denier. I'm just like, well, why not 7 years? Why not 12 years? I mean, like, why?
One
It
of
just seems
the
like too fine of a number here.
one of the advantages of this doom and gloom aspect is that it's going to hit poorer countries a lot worse than it is wealthier countries. I used Holland versus Bangladesh as a great example. If sea levels do rise many feet per year, well, then the African invasion is done for because there won't be an Africa left. When it comes to innovation, science, and technology, we Europeans are the best doing that. Our ancestors laid a foundation through free enterprise to make it so. And this whole effort is to just scare people into submission. Unfortunately, it works, but I'm of the view that the more energy sources, the better,
I agree with
because the
that.
more energy we have, the more means we have to generate the necessary power to ensure that our part of the world stays on top.
Well, I do agree with a lot of that in principle. I will argue, or not argue, really, just point out, or at least kind of consider Africa. It's a pretty big landmass, so maybe they
Mm,
got some inland places people can migrate to. But you got river systems, and those get affected. So that's a pretty interesting angle there. Now I'm gonna play
mm,
devil's advocate a little bit because, like, this is something that, like, we talk about, like, European, perseverance and technological development, and I think, like, some people, whether they're right or wrong, they would counter with saying that, oh, well, that's because they were oppressing those brown countries forever, Bangladesh,
mm.
as we mentioned, like, and because of that oppression, like, the Dutch East India Company, if I'm even naming it correctly, or is it Dutch East Indies, whatever the fuck company,
Mhm.
like, like they were like even like the British East India Company, is it? I mean, like they
Those
got
2, I mean, Britain and Holland's private companies managed to, gain control of what is now modern day, India and Indonesia. There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, during the height of the Second Great British Empire, this was after the American Revolution, when a corporation was the second most powerful, institution on planet Earth, the British East India Company. And eventually it got swallowed up by the authorities because, well, we can't have a corporation becoming too powerful. But the same with Holland in regards to the Dutch East Indies, which is now Indonesia. You have to accept, ladies and gentlemen, that when one group of people in a small continent practically conquer the world and make it so, you cannot deny that our capabilities are better than our contemporaries on planet Earth. I mean, the Chinese are very intelligent people, but they stayed for the most part in their region. They are a regional power, but not a world power,
that's a
mainly
fair
because
point.
of the fact that their people did not go forth and conquer. And
That's
that's
a
why
good point.
I'm of the view that
Hmm.
the modern era, this era where you must not take action, as it were, it goes against our human nature, especially against the nature of Europeans, because we are a people of action. If we weren't a people of action, North America and South America wouldn't be full of Europeans.
I think the British Empire is something that spread civility and technological advancement to the world over, and just having the English language spreading to more places facilitated for the ability to communicate more complex, more abstract concepts, and that's something that people will sometimes feel is an unpopular perspective, but it's true, And I want to give a
Britain is
mhm.
Britain, France, Spain, and Portugal. Those 4 nations made 2 continents, North and South America, the way they are today. And the Spanish and Portuguese influence is clear in Latin America, from Mexico all the way down to Argentina. And in regards to Britain and France, Britain's greatest legacy, for better or for worse, is the United States of America. And of course, France's influence was also in the modern USA, as well as in Canada, with the Quebecois as their great successors. Although the Russians also had a good stake in the Americas, mainly in Alaska and what is now considered northwestern, or is it northeastern? One of those. North.
Alaska, you said?
Alaska, the west of Canada, and
Mm-hmm.
northwest of the United States was once
Yep.
under Russian imperial rule. Then they ran out of money and fucked off back home. But yes, the European influence on just two continents is staggering. And no wonder those two continents are very successful. But it does go to show that the British and French models were far more successful than the Spanish and the Portuguese, as we can clearly see, because Latin America is still a shithole. Second world shithole, but still a shithole, whereas the United States and Canada are only shitholes because first world people don't have a backbone, and third world people have too much brawn and not enough brain. I know I can sound pretty controversial, but no one's called me a liar yet.
I mean, it's some interesting perspectives. I think we need hot takes, and that everything needs to be on the table. And if people would be more open, maybe we could, if you were wrong, well, good, then let's have an open debate. If that's something that needs to be done. But real quick, I want to give some acknowledgments to the chat. I want to give a shout out to Jason Fox and Slim Nim, who plays the shit. I forgot the name. It's something Parable. Stanley Parable. Yeah, it's a game where you have a bucket. Yeah, it's a bucket, it's like a bucket meets Office Space, and that's the game. It's not. I'm definitely paraphrasing it heavily, but I do want to point out some relevant things. So, regarding the climate narrative, excuse me, the rhetoric is nonsense, and so destroys so and so. The hyperbole is so overblown, and that's kind of how I feel. And so with this, like when people say that it takes like 8 to 18 years for the nuclear power plant. One, I don't like this like point of no return thing, but even if it was true, it's like, you know what? If you're so pro science, then innovate a solution. Figure out a way to make it possible to build a power plant more quickly. And I'm not saying, we want to dump nuclear waste, because I actually do have concerns about nuclear. And what it is, okay, check this out. You had wind scale in your country. You ever hear of wind scale? Look it up sometime. It was your country's biggest nuclear disaster, as I understand, from the 1950s. But just in general, a pressurized water reactor is like a tea kettle, and you're heating up the water using the uranium. But you got two vessels of water. You have like a heat exchanger where it's like almost like pipes that don't mix with each other, but it's like two copper pipes that are welded together so that the hot water can transfer heat from this pipe to this pipe without mixing the water. So the reason for that is because in a pressurized water reactor, your fuel rods, which would say these are nuclear fuel rods, they have to be immersed in water. So the water covers them, but as you elevate them, you have pellets that come out the bottom. And as the pellets get exposed, they emit heat. So there's a controlled way to get the heat to come out. And your goal is to boil water and make steam. And then with that steam, you could run it through a turbine. But what they'll have to do is to prevent it from overheating is cool it down with, say, river water or ocean water. Now, you don't want to dump if the fuel rods were inside this bottle, you don't want that water mixing with the water outside. So what you do is you have that pipe I mentioned, that heat exchanger, and you can then get some of that excess heat out to the ocean or something like that. And that's all great and dandy, but here's the problem now. Eventually, that water in the central containment vessel, the inner containment vessel, gets saturated with neutrons or something. And at some point, it can no longer sustain a reliable fission reaction unless you flush the inner system. So that means you do have to either get that water out of the containment vessel and treat it as nuclear waste, which would be the ideal, or wait till a storm, like a hurricane or a big rainstorm, and dump it. Because essentially, it's okay to dump it. The permits that they get for dumping waste or whatever allows them to dump waste through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission will allow it if you're able to ensure a certain amount of dilution. with the environment. And so this is where, like, I mentioned wind scale, because if you look up wind scale and you try to look at maybe like occurrences of leukemia in your area or around your nation, you might see a pattern. You might. I'm not guaranteeing this, but
Mm.
essentially there was a large release of radioactive material. It would have gotten into the soil, would have gotten into the grass, would have gotten into the dairy cows. And so this is like a factor. So my concern about like expanding too much nuclear, like people say it's a drop in a bucket, they're generally right. But when you scale up things in general, any like small percentage of negative, also a negative aspect impact, also scales up. So those are my concerns. People don't usually talk about that, but
Mm.
there's hope. They have this thing called a small modular reactor, and essentially, what you do is you have a smaller reactor. It doesn't, instead of putting out megawatts of energy, it puts out kilowatts, which are, like a kilowatt is 1,000 watts.
Mhm.
It's like 10 100-watt light bulbs, which of course today we're not using incandescent bulbs. We're using LEDs that are more efficient. But just to give you
Well,
some reference,
the Chinese can make a nuclear power station in a few years. Of course, they're not efficient as ours, but they have always relied on quantity rather than quality. And when they want to get things done, they get things done. That's the advantage of their
it's a
command and
double-edged
control
sword. It's
system.
true though. The command economy does get shit done,
Mm.
but they also don't give a shit about some of the people, depending on what crust of society you're
Mm.
in. But that is true. Like we could learn. I think we can learn something from them, but we also don't want to become like them by any measure. At least in
That's
my.
the danger, because whether you like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the coming technology that is slowly but surely manifesting is going to render financially based institutions null and void. That's why I'm in fully in favor of multiple energy sources that are cheap, because it gets the financially based method out of the way for the most part. Because if things are cheaper, and if inflation is kept under control, and if currency strength is very strong, and the cost of living is low, there's not much need to compete in a financially based world. And with the coming technical innovations that will rob people of most of their, what's the word I'm looking for, livelihoods, that's the one.
That is a
It will get
concern.
more and more difficult to live in a financially based world, which we have been used to for at least the past couple of 100 years, because we had feudalism and we have capitalism. What's coming next, in my view, hopefully, instead of having a financially based future, we have a reality based future. That's why I'm called reality
There is
based.
a lot of fiction because the markets. I remember, like when I was applying for a job on Wall Street, they were doing this thing called algorithmic trading, and this is pre
Mm.
AI machine learning, but essentially you have like bots exchanging stocks, and it's so like, okay, if this like condition is met, a stock goes like 5 cents down, or like even a fraction of a cent down, then the computer's gonna say, okay, I'm gonna buy like 1,000,000 shares. I'm gonna buy 1/10 of a penny across 1 billion shares, let's say,
Mm.
and it's constantly buying and selling. And so about like a few years back, like a couple of occasions after the great financial crisis, you had these incidents called flash crashes. And one of them was in '09, where like the Procter and Gamble stock just made this like whoop, like drop, and it came back, it recovered, but it was just like, how did this happen? Like luckily there was no real consequence, but it's like, how did this happen? So some jerk off on MSNBC or CNN's like, oh, it was a trading guy with fat fingers entering the wrong order. And it's just like the most absurd things. Like you have confirmation dialogues. Like it is, I have this weird keyboard in my closet that came from Wall Street. And it's like, it's not, it's a QWERTY keyboard, but in the arrangement of a square keypad. And these
Oh.
professional guys, let me see if I can get this keyboard real quick.
Well,
This,
while you're looking for the keyboard, I will just speak my mind.
please.
So go ahead, take your time, Ronnie. Now, most Americans are used to the financially based world that we live in. In fact, that's why the United States is on top. So, when you talk about the end of a financially based world, I'm sure most Americans would be wide eyed and be very concerned. But uh, the danger of automation and artificial intelligence is a far greater danger to people's livelihoods than the age of agriculture was, and the age of industry, and the age of services, which we are getting towards the end of now. So a lot of people are going to lose their livelihoods, and hopefully that will lead to more and more people being in favor of a reality-based future in which, I know it sounds cliched, in which people matter more than profit. And this is why socialists and communists are doing so well, because they have realized for about 150 years that the days of a financially based world are coming to an end. It's just that their efforts to provide a solution and an alternative tend to lead to starvation, because they are trying to incorporate a new system within the confines of an old system that is still firing on all cylinders and is still working despite its flaws. So yeah. Trying to be reality based is not easy in a financially based world, but when people start losing their livelihoods, I'm sure more and more folks will endorse a future that is for social peace and economic prosperity, hopefully through freedom, peace, and prosperity, and not through dictatorships and chaos as a result. So take it away, Ronnie, in regards to your showcase.
I'm giving it away. If you become a member on my channel, no, we don't have memberships yet. But this is what my keyboard looks like when I'm not wearing glasses. No, it's not. Actually, my vision is a little better, only slightly. So yeah, this is this exotic keyboard, and it's like it's got like the numeric keypad. So theoretically, you would have these guys called market makers, and they're sort of like the guys who would seed the initial purchases so that other people buy stuff, and there's other people who would use these. And so on the trading floor, you'd have these things. It's almost like in Return of the Jedi, when they had those arcade machines that Darth Vader and the Emperor would use. They look like arcade machines. Well, apparently on the trading floor, they used to have the same setup as Emperor Palpatine's office. And so these guys would be like on the phone, and they'd be like, you know, and they do their thing. I did their order numbers, and you got shit like trade, bid, buy limit, open, buy, market. So I guess at the start of the day, trade, block, find, quote, RPT, AXL. So that must be like reality point, maybe. No, wait, I wish it said RBX. That'd be way cooler. Reality based extreme order entry. So this is like the most exotic keyboard. We got dot. I don't know if that's like a dot, like a period, or if that's just it's just an abbreviation. We got print. I guess that's control, maybe. Tick, whatever that means. That might mean something. I mean, I'm sure everything means something. Tape, clear, depth, caps lock. You got some. It's just a weird ass keyboard, and it's got some mileage. You can tell that someone like kind of like shinied it up over here. So they must have like maybe some like old timer was doing this a lot. I don't know. And it's got like some weird ports. So let's get let's let the nerds in the show see what we got here. So we got a conventional keyboard hookup here, a conventional mouse, or PS2 keyboard and mouse they call it, which is not PlayStation 2. It's IBM Personal System 2. And then this is the cable that I would plug it into a special computer with. I don't think it will work on a normal computer. I'll try it again one day, but I have the cable and it didn't do jack shit when I plugged it in. There could be something like it needs an extra power extension or something. I don't really know. But you can see it literally says like NYSE on here, which is New York Stock Exchange, which is like the employer that this was obtained from, or the garbage dumpster it was obtained from, I should say. And this was apparently upgraded. And this is an interesting trend. Like when I worked at Best Buy, I learned like the POS cash register printers were like $1,000 each. So if something was malfunctioning, it wasn't just like, oh, get a new printer. It was like, no, some guy would come over and repair the printer itself. And so I imagine when in its main heyday, that was probably the situation with this type of piece of equipment where it was oh, and hey, it's from your alma mater. Or your birthland right there. Made in
so no wonder it's broken.
They had some interesting computers in the 80s in Britain, and one day I hope to learn more, but there's some interesting documentaries, including a documentary called Micromen, and it was about Clive Sinclair and the guys who did the BBC microcomputer. And there was a very vibrant history. Like, you were born a little too late to really enjoy the fruits of that era, but your country had a very vibrant history when it came to pre-Microsoft.
Switch the camera.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. He's like, oh, what are you trying to say? I'm a lefty?
No.
Let me dye my hair purple.
You try selling a try selling a reality-based future to Americans. It's like selling a free market economy to fucking Chinese communists. It's never going to work because I know what Americans are like. You're all stuck in your ways. You don't want to embrace the future. You want to stay on top because, well,
We are always on top, except for
my
Afghanistan.
I mean, 70 or 80, maybe, yeah, 80 years. The United States of America has been on top for 80 years. The British Empire was on top for at least 200 years, and the Roman Empire was on top for about 500 years, and before that, the Roman Republic, which is another 500 years. If
Ooh.
America keeps going the way it does, then it will simply be a blip.
We are all vassals of the. We are actually vestiges of the Roman Empire. So hear this crazy shit out about this crazy rabbit hole. And real quick,
Mhm.
let's see here. Yeah, China's anti-religious, loads of problems, social problems. And let's see. I'm quite poor for a citizen of the U.S. of A. James says, I would like to be treated more humanely, thinking of abandoning the US of A for the Philippine Islands. Double-edged sword there. We'll talk about that sometime. But double-edged sword, I could tell you some stories from my Filipino-American friends. And yes, you're correct. It was a DIN. He says, I think it was a DIN port, which I think means like double inline something something port. But yes, it is I believe those were DIN ports as well, James. And like the Atari and Commodore computers used for their monitors and tape decks also used. Yep, that's correct. And one day, I may resurrect some retro computers. I saw this beautiful video about the IBM PC-8T, different rabbit hole. So basically, big ass desktop that set the standard for modern gaming desktops without actually being planned. But
Mhm.
yeah, that machine one day will touch that. So okay, here's what. Okay, so Roman Empire, you get the Vatican City State in Rome, right?
Mhm.
And the Vatican City State is probably one of the oldest incorporated entities on this planet. It is an incorporated entity as much as it is. It's not just its own nation. When people say it's its own country and its own micro nation, it is because it is a incorporated entity. And of course, you know, you had London under the Roman Empire, and
Mhm.
London, you have two Londons, not really two Londons, but you have like the greater London area, and you got the inner part, that quarter
Yeah, the city
mile.
of London. Mm.
Exactly. And so that's another very old incorporated entity right there. So now you go digging on YouTube's and you'll find, now I'm not sure if I buy these narratives, but it's an
Mhm.
interesting narrative. And I'm not purporting to say it's accurate. And I don't want to be spreading disinformation or say these are my views, but it's just like something that maybe it's worth investigating and exploring. That's what I would say. It would be worth exploring. And so, okay, you got basically right there, Vatican City State, you got City of London. Okay. And then you got District of Columbia. And what did what did the flag for the British East India Company look like? Well, let's get a look at that right now. Let's see. Or Dutch, whatever. Let's see. East India Company
Things
flag.
things that survive the longest, ladies and gentlemen, are almost never on top. I mean, look at Iceland or look at Japan. These are nations and peoples that have been around for, in Japan's case, well over 2,500 years, or in Iceland's case, well over 1,000 years. Great flag, wonderful. You know, that was back in the period when it was the the kingdom, the United Kingdom, which is the union of England and Scotland, of which Wales was considered a part of England. Of course, the flag of today is based on the union of Great Britain and Ireland, then became Northern Ireland for obvious reasons. So, yeah, Wales is always considered a part of England within the United Kingdom. So, as a region, comparing Wales to other regions of England, it's actually quite on par. But when you compare nation to nation, we are really undermatched here in Wales. So the only future I see for Wales on its own is if England is cut to bits, which might happen considering all the diversity, because we're nowhere near as diverse in Wales or Scotland, especially not in Northern Ireland. They don't even like each other, never mind foreigners. But
Yeah.
if England does break into, enclaves, it gives Wales a great chance to be its own nation. We don't have nearly as many diversity problems yet, which means it could buy us some time to, deal with the cities and then build our border, our Great Wall, as it were. Oh, we also have 2 bridges that connect the south of our country to the southwest of England. So if we ever did become an independent nation, we would either have to build a wall or just blow up the bridges. One of those.
Or
One of
put a
those.
toll, or make it a toll road
Well, it was.
and
It was.
require gold for payment.
To
No
pay
fucking
for
euro
it.
dollars, no fucking pound sterling. No. We want your fucking bling bling or
Well,
some bullshit.
to pay for the bridges, there was a toll. I believe
Oh,
it only
we
went one. I think the toll only went one way though, going into Wales. So
we
if
do
you
that
wanted
in
to leave Wales, I think it was free. But if you wanted to go into Wales, you had to pay for it.
so you got to pay to go back home. Yeah. We do that in New York, and well, actually now they started charging 2 ways. I think they might have lowered the cost each way so that it's like an excuse to charge both ways. But of course, they're always putting the money towards other things. It's supposed to go into maintenance, and then of course the money is treated like Social Security. It's a slush fund. It's not supposed to be a slush fund, but it's treated accordingly. And I want to give a shout out to Lorenzo Sleestack and QEPX. I hope you guys are both having a fine evening or day, depending on your time zone. And yes, James pointed out, that's what I forgot to say, was Washington, D.C. is supposedly, and I want to use that underline the word supposedly, not really part of the US of A. So, what some people question, like, what is the relationship? It's not a state. Is it part of a state? It's like, well, it's on top of Virginia and Maryland, but is it part of one or the other? It's like, no, it is the District of Columbia. It is a district. And this is actually a change that is post-Civil War. And some people like to implicate like the beginnings of central banking. I wouldn't go quite that far, but that's like a whole fucking rabbit hole. So yeah, it might be worth exploring, or it might be something that would be a waste of time. So just want to throw that out there because
just remember, Ronnie, the greatest killer of Americans in a conflict was Americans during the Civil War.
yes,
Just goes to
that's
show
true.
your greatest enemy is yourself. You rise against a great empire, and then you're shocked when your own people rise against what becomes a great empire.
Oh,
Although they fail, they still rise against what was, during that period, a growing American empire that was defeating the Indian horde. And, well, it kicked the Spanish successors' anuses, the Mexicans. So, when you fight against tyranny, and then you're surprised when you become a tyranny that people rise against you to protect their own economic interests, of course, you wonder, it's like the Pikachu face. He's like, oh no, I'm so surprised that I became a tyranny and people are rising up against me. It just goes to show that the United States is not a singular entity. In a sense, the might of the United States back then was the North, and its soul was in the South. Of course, now you have the West, which is just
well,
full of degeneracy. Just look at California. But that division exists to this day. You could easily divide America into 3: the
well,
North, East, the South, and the West.
that might be where our salvation lies. And although, we could say divided we fall, there may actually be strength in being able to have autonomous regions where you don't have to pitch in to support people shitting on the streets of San Francisco. And if they're not going to contribute anyway, maybe we want to have a common defense pact amongst states that decide they want to be more productive. Maybe, you get like the Northeast, unfortunately, would probably be like, relegated to being like fascist. You'll get maybe like a block in Idaho and parts of like, the Pacific Northwest venturing together to do some stuff together. But I mean, there may be some salvation there. I mean, hopefully it doesn't have to come to that, but I think that trajectories are things that, like you said, people say history doesn't only repeat, it rhymes. I mean, that's not the quote, but that's what I'm going to say is it does have that theme going on. So, and like, so yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground on these things. And only other thing I would expose you to is my butt. No, I'm kidding. That'd be funny if I got up just now. But
How American of you.
weeks ago, I had Punk Waddle on, like 2 weeks ago, and I told him about the Franklin expedition. And we're not going to go into the weeds on this, but this is something I just want to share because it's like from your country. There's actually a mini series on AMC called The Terror. There's a fictional book called The Terror, and basically around 1845. They wanted to figure out they sent an expedition to cut a shortcut through to find the Northwest Passage, a shortcut north of Canada through the ice, basically to get to the Orient, to get into India. And in this case, back then, it was normal protocol to get your ship trapped in the ice and to like basically spend a winter or two trapped in the ice. This is like pretty normal protocol. Like I don't know if I have any pictures of frozen ships right now. Apparently not, but basically they all hands got lost. But before they got lost, they had a death march. Like they were like up on King William Island, and they like took their lifeboats and they put them on sledges. In fact, we do have a picture of the sledges, and they dragged those sledges with little lifeboats on them. And you can see right here, like a party of guys dragging a boat on a sledge, and they had like different size boats. They had smaller ones, they had pinnaces, which are larger boats, and basically these guys are already coming down with scurvy because they were using like some of the first canned food ever used, like the largest
That's
order.
that's one big bell,
Isn't it?
Ronnie.
Yo, right? That's like
Look at
that
that
gotta weigh
bell.
like that's like multiple decks. Like, I mean, how could they even fit that on a ship? You're
I
right.
think they may be using that bell as a frame of reference.
A frame of reference to what?
Well, for scale purposes.
Maybe. I mean, well, like because I'm sure it's not the actual ship's bell from the ship. I mean, like that's not. It can't be the scale. I would hope it's not the scale because like they did have a ship's bell. We did get the ship's bell. I think it was about real life size, about something like that, maybe. Like, and I think it would have been. Would it be in the middle of the ship? I mean, I'm not a maritime expert, but these were
Well,
bombardment ships. These were used to bomb Fort McHenry. The Star Spangled Banner. There were two ships, HMS Terror and HMS Erebus, which is also fancy speak for Gates of Hell. And probably a bad luck omen to have a ship by that name when you're going and getting
So
lost in the ice.
that's why they built the Panama Canal. Could you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, say China builds a massive canal through the United States, starts off in San Francisco and ends at Galveston. I think that's what it's called.
Hmm.
Now imagine they did that. That'd be pretty bad, wouldn't it? Now imagine the United States takes a country, Panama, and sticks a canal through its country without its permission. Yep. And
But
you
then we
wonder
get
why
we
people hate the West.
Well, I mean, we gave them some money and jobs and stuff. I mean, we can't help it if the people there were ingrates. If the savages were ungrateful, I'm kidding. But no, it's actually a valid point. It really is. And like with Native American tribes, one thing I find interesting is like I did a Columbus Day stream because I wanted to talk about the fact that whether you like it or not, for better or for worse, as a result of the Columbus expedition, the Western civilization changed forever as a result of that expedition, for better or for worse. And that's also for better or for worse for the people, in the Americas. But another thing is that the people who bitch about, saying it's like they'll argue like, oh, it's Indigenous Peoples Day, and this is like something that like kind of inspired me to do a stream about it. Well, like if you're gonna do that, like I want you to name fucking like at least 5 nations, 5 tribes, and I mean like the Winnebago, the Algonquin, the Sioux, aka Lakota, the Navajo, I need to name one,
Cherokee.
Cherokee. Thank you. And so that's 5 right there. And like so, if I was like like a woke person, I would make it my business to show that I can name more fucking nations than the rest of people, I guess. And there's a very rich history, and even then, like they were warring amongst each other, so it doesn't make it right to like do the whole manifest destiny thing. But it is fair to acknowledge that they were as much warring amongst themselves before we arrived. With the first island, one of the first islands that Columbus landed on, apparently there was like 2 groups, one of them that was into cannibalizing the other group. So if that's
Oh
true,
my.
I mean, it doesn't make them the most innocent group.
Mm.
And I don't think the people on the, on the ships that Columbus sent, the Santa Maria and the other 2, I don't think they were all like, hey, let's give them fucking diseases. I mean, like it happened. There's reason
If
that.
if
Mhm.
the natives had nationhood in the North, it's like in North America, if they had the concept of nationhood and they were one united people, chances are Europeans would never have gotten a foothold in North America. Of course,
Hmm.
in Latin America and Central America, there were civilizations from the Mayans to the Incans and the
Oh
Aztecs.
yeah.
And their people saw this tyranny in their own land, and they worked with the Spanish and the Portuguese to get rid of it. Of course, the disease came later. We gave them smallpox, and they gave us back syphilis. So, yeah.
Yes, that was the gift that keeps on giving, and we are ornery. Quote: kick hard against the goads. End quote. Your guest might recognize the quote. Do you recognize that quote?
No, a lot of things go over my head. I'm not a particularly talented individual, and
Maybe.
my brain, when it comes to memory, is kaput. But yeah, I'm sure people will laugh at the reference and laugh at the fact that I don't understand the reference. So yeah.
That's interesting. We'll wrap it up very shortly. Just get the Twitter chat, see if there's any other ground we want to cover. There was 77 dudes shot. Wait, 77. Okay, I'm gonna read this verbatim, and then I'm gonna read it. Wait, okay, I think I'm. When like there's a typographical error. So let's see if I can decipher. There was a 77 dude shot protesters in Panama. I think you're saying there was 77 protesters shot in Panama.
That
He was
wouldn't surprise
exceeding.
me. Wouldn't surprise because the Spanish, in Spain, for example, they take a harsh approach to protesters, and their successors in Latin America no doubt do the same. When visionaries take power, though, change can happen, good change, like we're seeing in El Salvador, which is slowly but surely turning into one of the most prosperous countries in Latin America, and that's saying something considering how before his administration, Bukele's administration, they were basically killing each other. And yeah, it just goes to show what one man with vision and staunch loyalists can do. So yeah, bring back Caesar, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a dictatorship in the household, we have dictatorships in schools, we have dictatorships in the workplace, but we don't have dictatorships in our political system. Something
Well,
seems off.
there's like a thing like now one thing is like if it quacks like a duck, maybe let it be a duck. But on the other hand, like I think one of the issues with our at least the U.S. foreign policy is that we're constantly trying to maintain the moral high ground. It's like when we broke Afghanistan, when you break it, you buy it, and we broke it, we didn't truly buy it. And it's like we were trying to ingratiate ourselves, we're trying to show that we had the high ground, moral high ground. But I think there's a point. It's like once you break it, you're supposed to clear the fucking place, shoot it up, set it on fire, and then you rebuild it, and the good
An
people
occupation.
remain.
Well, yeah, Afghanistan is a great example of an invasion, getting rid of a government that won a civil war and made it their own after destroying the Soviets who were based there. Their system is barbaric. It's called mainstream Islam. Its greatest strength is the fact that it hasn't changed in 700 years or 1400 years. And the fact is that it won't change for better or for worse. If you're going to invade a territory, you invade it, you occupy it, and you colonize it. Simple as that.
Yes,
And if you
exactly.
or you do what the Spanish did, because what the British and French did in North America was quite merciful compared to what the Spanish, especially, and to a lesser extent, the Portuguese did. The Spanish just killed everyone, and the Portuguese killed all the men, raped all the women. I know it's a very controversial
No,
thing to
no,
say,
no.
but they
You
did.
remind me of something about the Spanish. So a while back, I bring up this guy named Father de las Casas, and
Mhm.
his thing was like he was a priest. He saw the Indians or the natives in South America struggling at the silver mine. So he goes, the Africans, they're able to handle the heat. They would be better at this job and they wouldn't suffer. So then
Mhm.
the Spanish try it out. They enact this form of slavery, and then he's on his deathbed saying, I regret suggesting that idea. So I mentioned this to my coworker, and he brings up this theory that when Columbus came to the Americas, there were already people of color here, and I mean like African color, like
Mhm.
very black, not like dark skinned natives. And I go like, well, can you recommend a book? He's like, Google it. I'm like, Google it. Jesus Christ. Like, that's not a fucking source. But
Well, if you
anyway,
wanted to colonize a territory, it is invasion, occupation, colonization, remove the native population, put in your own population. We sank 20 years of time and money into a territory that is the graveyard of empires, but using that format, you become the majority and you get rid of the native population as a minority. I know it sounds bad and sounds bloody, but you'd be amazed, ladies and gentlemen, how many people on planet Earth regard America as Satan. When the when the Iranians shout death to America, half the world fucking agrees with them, and for
mhm.
obvious reasons. Just look at the track record of the countries that the United States has either invaded or bombed since 1945.
So I'm
there
not
you
sure if
go.
that bodes well or bodes against the method of occupation and conquest. You know, like it sounds to me that like we would make more enemies, but in the short term, it would be a cleaner operation. It wouldn't be as messy as it was.
Iraq's another great example. I mean, Britain and the United States invaded and occupied the territory. We tried to impose our democratic values on an unstable region. Of course, it was a disaster. These people don't know how to handle democracy. They're third world shitholes who need strong, visionary leaders, which is what our ancestors were great at doing, providing a strong vision. The only reason we abandoned empire in the case of the British Empire is, number one, the United States didn't want empires in their new world order, which is now the current world order, and it wasn't making us a profit, so we decided to abandon the whole venture gradually. Of course, there has to be a profit motive into it. I'm sure Afghanistan has plenty of things to sell, mostly heroin seeds, but it
Yes,
is
that was
certainly
big.
some. And then you could use that against the Chinese, like the Opium War situation.
And I don't
Uh,
know if we were doing that, but we should. I mean, no, morally no, but there it is. We are engaged, or they are engaged in chemical warfare against us, sending all this
mm,
cheap fentanyl into our lands, and all these fucking dope dealers are being assholes. I mean, nobody should be buying dope, but if someone's gonna buy dope, they're safer getting like clean ish dope than they
mm,
are to get something mixed with this fentanyl. Because with fentanyl, like if I had like let's say like a bag of powder this big of heroin and this much this much fucking fentanyl, you can't mix it evenly. You need like some
oh
lab grade
no.
equipment to create solutions and liquid solutions to get that mixed correctly. And this is why like two dope fiends could be sitting down doing drugs together, and one guy can say, I'm going to shoot up a bag this big. Then the other guy's going to say, I'm going to do a test
Mm,
shot this big. And I literally know a story like this. So the guy, he shoots a bag like that big, okay? Not an exact measurement, but I'm just going to say the smaller bag. And the person who shoots the tiny little tester shot, they drop dead instantly. Their lips are turning blue. They're like, basically like, it's over unless, I don't know if they survive in this story, but no, they died in this story. And the other guy, he did a way bigger shot, but because like there wasn't one little grain of concentrated fentanyl in the corner of that tester shot, the like because you get the idea. Just like it's a hot mess, and the people are dying in scores as a result of this situation. And so maybe it is appropriate to dish it back. Although with the way China centrally controls things, the way that they police their situation,
mm.
I don't know how easy it would be to be an addict in China. I think they would
Oh,
clamp down on the individuals.
not easy at all. Of course, China is, whether you like it or not, the best of both worlds, the best of the financially based system and the best of their command and control economy. We are dealing with a nation that would happily and easily wipe out half their population in order to be the world's next great power. They are willing and able to do whatever it takes to be number one, and they haven't changed. The only reason they changed economically was for the sake of survival. At their core, principally, they are still a communist dictatorship that are more than willing to kill their own people, never mind foreigners. And yeah, we don't see that kind of commitment from the United States and the Western world because too many generations, in our case, two, maybe three, has grown up being number one. And when you grow up being number one, you never think you're going to be number two or number three. So we have to watch out for the potential scourge that is the People's Republic of China. And I think every effort should be made to ensure that this rogue state, because it is a rogue state, it literally took power from the legitimate Republic of China in a civil war, this rogue state be dealt with as a rogue state. But since we tried to make them like us, it's not going to work. Yes, that is true. People have gotten soft in the West because our leaders have convinced us that words speak louder than actions. And yeah, we've lost our way as a people. We're being guilt tripped to oblivion. Thankfully, it's beginning to no longer work. But with
Mm-hmm.
our establishment, got to get rid of them. Ultimately, one way or another, they have to go. Their time is over. they're living in the wrong century. I mean, your president is a fucking zombie. He's not a
Literally.
human being. He's a zombie who is now blaming his aides as the first orange president will retake his power. And folks, he is orange. He's not white,
Well,
not black. He's orange.
I didn't know he had AIDS, but if I known he had AIDS, it would make sense why he's so fucked up. Now, jokes aside, I know you meant his assistants, but no, it is like it's terrible. It's like it's a sad state of affairs watching this guy. Like it's funny, but it's sad, and it's also just shitty that we have to put up with it. Like this guy's like walking in the wrong direction on stage. He's getting lost. He's like walking up to people like at random, like and just looking at them. Like it's just like it's the weirdest fucking thing to see a comatose man doing these things, like walking around like this. And real quick, so I don't know much about the Smith Modernization Act of 2013, but apparently they have one that dates back to 1948, and I will do my homework on it. The link I posted is from a Gov website, so I do recommend getting an independent source on that if you want to get more info. Don't trust one source. I'm not saying it's a bad source, but it's nice to get diversity of sources on things like that. The British Empire was more good than bad. Yeah, I would concur with that in general, historically, and in the net effect of, the progress that resulted scientifically from that institution. World War II bankrupted the British Empire, so that's a rabbit hole that I shouldn't even be touching. But if you ever want the history of U.S. currency, there is a documentary called The Money Masters. But in a nutshell, pre-1920, a $20 bill was equivalent to 1 ounce of gold. During the Great Depression, they made it illegal for you to own gold bullion, although they really didn't have a way to enforce that law for longer than a year because it was very unconstitutional, but it was enough to scare people. So if I had 1 ounce of gold in 1933, the way that I would have returned my gold bullion would have been to take that 1 ounce gold coin, and the bank, in theory, would give you back a $20 bill for that gold coin. Okay, so far it's fair. But then they would have the bank holiday to see what banks were solvent. But part of that bank holiday was also to readjust the currency price. So they literally price fixed the gold price from $20 an ounce and increased it to $3 an ounce, which you would think that would be better. But no, it means that now I just gave you my gold for $20 an ounce, and now you tell me the price is $33 an ounce. That means that now I have to spend like 40% more if I wanted to dare buy back my gold from, say, a jeweler, and which would be the only people allowed to hold on to gold at this point legally. And of course, jewelers, they'll mark shit up like crazy, so good luck getting a fair deal. But anyway, fast forward to now, of course, before the 1933, there was gold convertibility. A $20 bill was, mighty because it was known to be synonymous with that 1 ounce gold coin. $20 will buy you 2 good suits, and a 1 ounce gold lump will buy you 2 good suits. Fast forward today, 1 ounce of gold turned into $2,000 or whatever it is will still buy you 2 good suits or the same amount of food as a $20 gold piece would have gotten you. Exactly.
It's a scourge, and that's why I personally believe, ladies and gentlemen, in a strong currency makes a strong people. The weaker your currency is, the weaker you are. Imagine if we had that mindset as a people. But unfortunately, currency is a promise, and the weaker it gets, the weaker that promise gets. And in regards to political figures who are responsible for these economic changes, people vote for what they deserve. So a decadent and corrupt people, unfortunately, vote for a decadent and corrupt leadership or political elite. When you've got their staffers fucking each other in the Senate hearing, that, folks, 50 years ago, that would have been grounds for a revolution in the United States, an uprising, bare minimum. And these establishment fuckers are putting people away for decades as a result of walking through the same buildings that their own staffers fucking. And it's not even man and woman. Just to make it fucking clear to you how much you're getting fucked over, it's decadent and corrupt forms of sexual activity, just to push the point home. Just to push it home.
It seems, I mean, it does seem like in-your-face type shit sometimes. And it is the story of inflation. And so basically the problem was that we wanted the foreigners to keep buying our bonds. And so we told the foreign investors, hey, look, although Americans can't convert their, have gold convertibility anymore. If you buy a treasury bond and you're a foreign investor, you can convert that into its equivalent in gold. So from 1933 to like 1970, we were practically giving it away. We go from having 500,000 tons in Fort Knox down to 250,000 tons in Fort Knox. And at that point, fucking Charles de Gaulle, the president or premier of France, goes, I'd like to cash in my treasury bonds, Mr. Nixon, or the treasury window. And at that point, Nixon was forced to basically close the gold window, as they put it. And so he suspended convertibility to gold temporarily. They always do that. You ever know, when was the last time a temporary government program was temporary? And then we moved towards
temporary is the administration it's built on.
Yeah, so we moved towards the petrodollar. And to be fair, there's a different narrative that fractional reserve banking enables growth. And even though like this sounds counterintuitive, there is a argument to be had there. But at the same time, the argument, the best trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist. And so I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but anything you want to add on that?
Well, he definitely does exist, and he is making himself manifest all over the world. It's a mix of incompetence and malice. The fact that these fuckers can get away with this is criminal, but the problem is lack of organization against it. Of course, whenever something organizes against it, it's instantly crushed. That's why I'm fully in favor of being criminally underrated. And that's why I'm fully in favor of reality-based being more of a concept than that of a channel. Anyone can be reality-based. I mean, I simply picked it as a name, but anyone can be of that mindset. And in regards to reality-based as a political force, it's something that can be here today, gone tomorrow. Can't really get rid of it because it has no structure. Can't destroy anything when it doesn't have a structure to build it on. So the more people who are reality based, the better. And yeah, keep on going, keep on growing, not just as a creator, but also as a person too. Thank you all very much for watching, and hopefully you all have a great night.
And I appreciate that, Ryan. And yeah, so reality based is here to stay in one form or another, like a holographic structure. You cut it in half, and it's a duplicate copy whenever you cut it in parts. Beyond that, I would just briefly touch on the chat, and let's just see here. Yes, I do have that Zelda cartridge plated in gold. That's a cool game, Games. And Games was playing a cool game called North versus South, a Civil War NES game, and it somehow inspired me to look up a game called The Silent Service involving diesel submarines from World War II. And that game was actually a pretty intricate NES game, like a submarine simulator. But what I was looking for, there was something in the chat that jumped out at me that I wanted to read. Oh, here we go. There's an entire series of books where AIDS came from aliens screwing with humanity. It's an interesting proposition, as James says. And the book was called... Yeah, right? I mean, it's an interesting perspective. I mean, there's other narratives to that, but even just from a creative writing standpoint, it's pretty fantastic. And that's called the Posleen War. So I will be investigating that. And I also want to let you guys know to check out Games, as he will be streaming some bumping games and already has streamed some bumping games. So we're going to just do that, because remember, my bot isn't working tonight. So we're going to have to just do this manually, including Ryan Raja Afty's channel, which I have right here in a browser tab somewhere over the rainbow. Now, actually, we don't have any rainbows on Ryan's channel. He doesn't allow them.
No. We have to appeal to Africans because they are the future, and rainbows and gayness is not really for them. I don't blame them, because AIDS is a very big problem in sub-Saharan Africa. But my channel is serious issue. My channel is Ryan Roger Athe. I was born in the year 1999. I don't look it, but in 2024 there is a slight rebrand in which we'll add reality based to our channel name for the eventual rebrand of being reality based sometime in 2025 or 2026. When you don't have to see this damn mug, and other people can be brought on as part of reality based, because it's not a person, it's a concept that anyone can be in any form of media, entertainment, or belief. So take it away.
Oh, I just want to say that I got my first handheld computer back when you were probably not even born yet, or just as you were being born. Yeah. So kind of funny how that works. And I don't have my Punk Water wallpaper up right now, which I wish I did, because he just looks so cool wearing his tuxedo on a Pocket PC screen. So I think the last thing I'm going to do, my last official function, is to get the Punk Water wallpaper up, and we're going to sign out. And so for everybody watching today, I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys had fun. This is my third guest ever, and I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but you know, with all the Doctor Who bullshit going on, I figure like we try to have some fun with that.
I try my best, Ronnie, to ensure that being reality based is an ideal worth fighting for, because it's trying to fulfill an ideal, which is very difficult to do. But being reality based, I think, is the greatest way of fulfilling that ideal. So here's to many triumphs for reality based in order to fulfill an ideal, or the ideal way of life. It's not easy, but nothing good ever comes easy.
Indeed. And so, yeah, work hard, but not too hard. Don't go to Korea. You'll work too hard and get diminishing returns. Work hard in America and you'll be happier. Work hard in England and you might be happy. Work hard in Scotland and you might be able to make friends with Ryan in the real world. And with that being said, let's see. James says it wasn't the disease, but the cellular phones and other computation devices that would completely feed the aliens what the humans are doing, like Cambridge Analytica. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my opinions on Neuralink another day. But like it's supposed to go into the weeds a little bit on that. And I guess the short version is AI machine learning will enable prosthetic limbs and all kinds of great stuff. Because I mean, essentially, like you want to teach a computer how to play Mario Kart, you hook the gamepad up to the software along with the video output, and you let the computer watch you play Mario. You let the computer see what the screen is doing while you're pressing buttons. And essentially, then you let the computer play the game. And when the computer fucks up, you tell it, did it do good or bad? And then whenever it does good, it's going to repeat the things that it was doing already. And that's essentially how you teach a computer to do these things. And the same applies to teaching it to do advanced, prosthetics, teaching those advanced electrodes to read signals from the center of the brain and turn it into something that's usable, like a moving finger. And with that being said, for everyone watching on the replay, for everyone watching now, I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. It was a pleasure interacting with you guys in the chat. For anybody watching on the replay, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave a comment. And it's all fun and games until Skynet becomes self-aware. Thank you, Bankman. Anything you want to add, Ryan?
Well, thank you all very much for watching. Check out the replay. I'm sure you will enjoy what it has to offer. And hopefully this show, longer than other episodes of this show, but hopefully it gets plenty of viewership. And you can also check out this show on the Me on Other Shows playlist. So yeah, that's me. Go be reality based, folks.
Yep, go forth and be reality based. The hyperlink is right here. And speaking of which, yeah, I've been updating my playlist, so I will add this to the weekly playlist. And with that being said, once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I think we're going to go and end transmission on my mark.
Bye.
I'm going to do that 5, 4, 3, 2, mark.